welcome to the Takarazuka Fan Podcast, a podcast where Takarazuka fans from all over the world get together to talk and flail about Takarazuka. We have 3 podcast members today. I am Carly from New York.
And Jen from New York.
And we have a new member today who is Becca. I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Becca. I'm from California. I've been a Takarazuka fan for coming up on about 10 years now, and I'm a very big fan of Hokusho Kairi.
Yay!
Welcome! So, everybody, what is your happy thing of the week? Jen, let's start with you.
So, I was trying really hard to think of something that wasn't Chicago related, but I have to admit it's kind of tangentially related. So I was looking at Aono Yuki's Twitter feed, and her posts while she was in New York City are really the cutest things ever. So we're gonna link to a couple of those posts for you, but just very cute. She was obviously having a lot of fun being in New York City, and some of her posts are in Little English, and she's talking about, like, after she went back to Japan, she's like, why is there no cherry-flavored ice cream like there is in America? It was just really cute.
I was thinking, like, Japan has literally every ice cream flavor on the planet.
Except apparently not American cherry.
Yeah, she was adorable. I really enjoyed the social media coverage from all of the ensemble cast throughout Chicago.
Yes.
Becca, what is your happy thing in Takarazuka this week?
So my happy thing in Takarazuka this week is that a announcement went up on TCA Pictures that Mi-chan is getting a memorial CD box set. It's going to be called Miracle, and it's spanning, even though it goes about 15 years worth of songs. And on one hand, I'm really excited. On the other hand, I can already feel just the number of things to buy for Taidon growing and growing, and
yeah.
At some point I'll just have to weigh, okay, what will still be in print a year from now and I can get later. But I am happy though that the company is recognizing that she is such a good vocalist and that she gets to have this, and it'll make my commute to work much more fun.
Yeah, I am so with you on the Taidon merchandise problem. Like, and part of it is because it's like, for example, Mi-chan's box set, like, Masaki got something similar, and I'm like, well, I already have all these songs in one form or another. Do I really need them combined in a box set?
Right.
So I'm kind of weighing things together. And like you said, sometimes you can get them used later for a little cheaper, but sometimes they also sell out, and then you're out of luck for
Right. It's more things like the Komori Blu-ray, which I really want to see and badly, but I'm also thinking, that's probably going to still be around 6 months from now.
Yeah. Oh, and as a warning to everybody, did you see they put another post up about the new Guys and Dolls release, wasn't it? And they were saying,
yes.
You got to pre-order it now. I think they were saying, like, there's not going to be anything available after the pre-order, so get it while it's hot, ladies and gentlemen.
It's going to be hot, for sure.
I need to talk to this person, but I think a friend was able to secure a copy for me, so I will keep it in a bank vault, I guess, or something.
Yeah, the Guys and Dolls release was like a bloodbath.
I just have to laugh, because when I bought Shibuki Jun's Guys and Dolls when I was in Japan in 2005, which would have been several years after they'd done it, and it was a limited release then too, and it sold out eventually, but like I had no idea how rare it was going to be when I bought it. It was just something I picked up. Happened to be the thing that dragged me into the fandom, kicking and screaming, but
yeah.
Kind of funny.
Well, there was a rumor going around when the show first started that it wouldn't be released on DVD, so I am happy that it was recorded, and, I'm sure several years from now it's going to be a total pain in the neck to get a hold of, but at least it exists out there.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be on Sky Stage eventually, too, and once it's on Sky Stage, it'll be everywhere, so.
Right.
That's true. I really struggled to think of a happy thing this week that was not Chicago related because we're about to talk about Chicago for who knows how long. But but as much happiness as that brought me, I'm going to go with this week was the Yukigumi Bao singing workshop, and I am really looking forward to seeing the Sky Stage digest of that. Yukigumi's my troupe. I've been cheating on them with Sorogumi a lot recently. A lot of that has to do with how mind-blowingly amazing the digest for the Sorogumi Bao singing workshop was. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing the younger kids in Yukigumi and what they did with it.
That's so cool. I mean, they haven't really done something like this since they did the concerts back in like 2001, right? That was the last time they had singing Bao Hall shows. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's really nice. I've seen some of the Encourage concerts, and what you're really struck by is just how talented they all are, and so many of them, especially some of the younger ones who are usually in the ensemble. It's really cool to see them get a chance to shine and to do the big solo numbers. So, yeah, I'm excited too to see a recording eventually.
Yeah, some of them who really don't get an opportunity to sing by themselves normally have some amazing voices, and it's really nice to hear them.
Yeah, definitely. Were you the one who forwarded on the picture somebody took of the pamphlet with all the songs and things in it?
I think so. I think I tweeted that.
Looked like a good song list.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But the main purpose of our podcast today is to, I guess, review and just generally get really excited about this past week in New York City, which was the Takarazuka OG performance of Chicago. I thought I'd be really depressed when it was over, but it was so good. I'm just still high off of how good it was.
Yes, it was a lot of fun, definitely.
Yes.
So this kind of started as a seed of an idea in 2012. Well, they've done productions of Chicago in Japan before. I'm pretty sure they did one, I don't know what year it was, but way back in the day, I've seen a poster with one where Asami Rei and Ootori Ran were Velma and Roxie.
Ooh. Oh.
But
that sounds like fun.
Yeah. I would pay to see that for sure.
Yes.
But this current incarnation was sort of born a little bit in 2012 when they did a selection of songs from Chicago for the first act of Dancing Crazy 2, which I don't know if it was the first. They started this series of OG specials that were the road to the 100th anniversary. And I don't know if that wasn't the first one, it must have been very early because it was almost 2 years before the actual 100th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And then all of 2013 was full of these OG specials. But so in Dancing Crazy 2, Shizuki Asato and Kozuki Wataru and Asami Hikaru performed a selection of songs from Chicago. It never made it even onto Sky Stage because of copyright. But I heard from some friends that there was a questionnaire handed out at that performance asking them if they would go see the full version of Chicago if they were ever able to put it on. And lo and behold, in 2014, we have OG Chicago for the grand finale of the 100th anniversary in November and December, which I went to see, and it was glorious, wonderful fun, and I could not believe my luck when they said that they were going to do it again, never mind in New York City.
Yes. Should we talk about the connection between why the Takarazuka OGs are all working with this company?
Yeah. I'm not sure, so please go ahead.
Yes.
Well, the parent company for Takarazuka Review is actually Hankyu, which owns a lot of different distribution centers and things like that. And they also own a movie production company, Toho, which also does stage production. So it's actually all under one umbrella parent company.
Wait, Hankyu owns Toho?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I didn't know. I always thought it was separate. Anyway.
Yeah, isn't that kind of cool? But that's why they get a lot of former top stars in some of their productions. I'm sure they have the connections to talk to them. And they get a lot of, like, Koike Sensei, the Takarazuka director and playwright, does a lot of shows for Toho as well. So it's all a little incestuous.
Yep.
Now, Carly, maybe you know this. I'm not sure. I just heard the American tour that went to Japan. It had there was a former Takara who was actually in that cast, wasn't there?
Yes, Wataru played Velma as a special guest for a few days. They took the whole Broadway cast to Japan, but she subbed in for Velma for a special short run, and I believe performed the whole thing in English.
Wow.
Wow.
I've been, since that happened last year, I think it was last year, dying to see even like a 5-second clip of that, but
I would love
nothing
it.
ever surfaced. She did I think she did a little interview or something online. I read something where she was talking about studying English, and I think in the press conferences before this run of Chicago started, when they were talking about going to New York and going around asking each other, does anybody actually speak English? I expected Wataru to say, well, now I do a little bit, but she said something like, I know the script of Chicago and that's it.
She's so cute.
So, I mean, I'm sure it went over fine because it was Japan and they're not going to judge her for her pronunciation or anything, but that's such a crazy, fun, amazing challenge, and I would love to see what she did with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who else? Somebody else did an English show after they retired. Is it Tani I'm thinking of? No. Who is it? Was it Kirian? God, I can't remember. Who did?
No, it wasn't Kirian.
Who did it's the baseball musical, right? Wasn't somebody in that one?
Oh, Damn Yankees?
Yes. Was it Wataru too?
No, Wataru was in Damn
Yankees.
Yankees, but I didn't realize that was in English.
I didn't know that was in English.
I think so. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting things mixed up now, but we'll have to look. We'll look it up. We'll put it in the post.
Sounds good.
Okay. So they first did this for the 100th anniversary of Takarazuka in 2014, and now I'm guessing part of the reason why they chose to bring it to the States is it is the 20th anniversary of Chicago. The Lincoln Center Festival typically brings Japanese theater over for part of it every year. They usually have some no and or kabuki, and last year I saw a production of Kafka on the Shore done by a Japanese cast. That was interesting.
Ooh.
But so I guess this year, in place of that, they decided to do Takarazuka and to celebrate. New York City is plastered with Chicago stuff because of the 20th anniversary. There's banners hanging everywhere. It's on every other taxi you see. So I'm guessing that had a lot to do with their decision, but I'm perfectly happy with that. But what's interesting is that it is an American production done by Japanese actresses viewed by an American audience. And I think based on some of the newspaper articles I read and some of the reactions I heard in the theater, that came across exactly as, multi-layered to some of the people watching as it sounds. I think, again, in some of the pre-Chicago press conferences, Mine Saori was saying how this is the first time ever that Takarazuka has gone overseas and not done a Nihonmono show and a typical Takarazuka style review show. So I guess it's always been less so recently when they've taken actual productions to Taiwan and stuff like that. But to me, that's a little bit different. But especially thinking back to certainly the older tours and the European and American tours in the late 80s and early 90s, it's always been this two-part show with, I don't want to say no plot, but a situation where your understanding of Japanese is not necessarily going to enhance your viewing experience all that much.
Right.
And yeah, so having the traditional Japanese component and then the traditional Takarazuka component. So I'm guessing it was a fun, interesting challenge for a lot of reasons. But I mean, what do you guys think of that? Performing Chicago versus something much more traditionally Takarazuka like in America in 2016?
So it's an interesting choice. I don't think it's perfect, but from what I've heard from friends, the 90s tour was not very well received. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think, and this is, pre-internet days, but I think the company just didn't really know how to market it, and people showed up expecting traditional Japanese dance, and instead you got a typical Takarazuka review. And so I think in some ways this was helpful in making it, it's much more accessible than, say, I don't know, Berusayu Nabata. At the same time, a lot of the criticisms I read in reviews, which I think makes sense, is if you're going to bring over the Takarazuka review, don't do the exact same thing that's playing at the American production of Chicago a few blocks down. As a Takarazuka fan, it's a really different production than usual, so getting to see that was pretty cool. So I feel like Hankyu hasn't quite gotten the formula yet for how to bring a show to America, but it was certainly intriguing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's hard to tell because you read some reviews of shows that are even older, like in the 50s and stuff, they were very well received, but America was kind of crazy for Japanese stuff back then, I think, and Takarazuka wasn't quite so... I mean, that type of a production was what was really popular in America back then. So it wasn't quite so jarring, maybe, because a lot of their aesthetic, I think, is still very much stuck in the 50s and 60s and the kind of shows that they do. But I am not a huge fan of Chicago. I will admit, like, if they didn't have certain stars in this show... Actually, even though they did, I wasn't even planning to come until I found out that most of my Takarazuka fan friends were going, and then I came more to see my friends than to see the show. So, for me, I would have liked to have seen a more Takarazuka-ish thing, and the fact that we got an encore, even though the rest of the tour of this production in Japan didn't get one, was a huge, like, this was awesome, and we're going to talk more about the encore later, but I brought my baby brother with me. I say baby brother, he's like in his late 20s, and he knew a lot about Takarazuka because I talked to him about it before, but he'd never really seen it, but he'd like gone online and looked at clips and stuff, and he was like, yeah, at first I was a little concerned. He's like, I didn't know if it would be sparkly enough. I was a little worried there weren't going to be enough feathers. I was like, don't worry. So I think he was really glad he got to see the encore too. So I don't know. Yeah. What did you think, Carly?
I think it was maybe it's so difficult. Part of me thinks it was an advantage to present something familiar because there are so many people who just are not open-minded enough to even accept something in another language. So like having that point of familiarity might have been an advantage on one hand. I certainly think that Lincoln Center had to sell a lot of tickets to a lot of people who were more mildly curious than interested. So that may have helped. But yeah, on the other hand, it's also a little bit strange to present Chicago, which is an American thing, to an American audience by a group of Japanese actresses. And there is a little bit of the novelty of it being an all-female cast. And even if I try and look at it from outside the perspective of a Takarazuka fan, I think the feats of strength by the ensemble alone are so impressive. They really, I don't know, I don't think they modified the choreography at all. I mean, maybe a tiny bit, but they're doing the same lifts, and it's two women who are roughly the same size doing the same lifts as the Broadway cast, which is made up of these tiny little dancer girls and these giant muscular, shirtless men who are lifting them over their heads. And I think it's really amazing. I read a clip of a newspaper article online that I thought was very interesting, that I think especially the American journalists were trying to approach it from, well, some of them were just, I don't know. I was not thrilled with the language that they used in their reviews, but they were looking to approach it from like a very, I guess, critical perspective. The thing that I read that was interesting was they were looking for gender commentary and didn't seem to find it, and were confused that they didn't find it. And I thought that again is such a Takarazuka thing that is so hard to understand without the background of a Takarazuka fan. That this, I mean, because it's all female theater, it inherently becomes gender commentary, but that's not the point. And people who don't have that experience are surprised that that's not the point.
Yeah. I kind of had to laugh because we got our playbills when we got into the theater, and we were kind of flipping through them. And of course, the introduction to Takarazuka was by Jennifer Robertson. And I was just like, oh no. And so I read through it, and she actually managed to keep it, pretty neutral. But then I noticed, like, the last paragraph or two, she had to put in her, like, anthropology. She had to talk about the sexual context of it in some, and I was just like, oh, great. But yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about in terms of Chicago is, despite it being Chicago and being very sexual in some aspects, in other it's not really. Like, you don't ever see the actresses even doing a stage kiss on stage. So that I thought was interesting, that there's not really a traditional romance the way that there would be in a typical Takarazuka show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Although there's a lot of grinding.
Yes.
It is 100% sexual clear. And 0% romantic. Is what
yeah.
Well, so this is a really hard question to answer, but I'm trying to think of today, what would be the ideal Takarazuka production to feed an American audience, if not something like Chicago? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like we were talking about this a little bit ahead of time. It's like they used to love to take Berubara out, the Rose of Versailles, and I feel like that would not be received very well by an American audience. First of all, because they don't have that background of loving the manga and the comics, and it's very, I don't know. So I was like, okay, so that wouldn't work. And a lot of the traditional Takarazuka shows are also very similarly, like, you have to kind of be in love with this thing. You can't be like you mentioned, you can't be like a casual interest in it and go and see it and really fall in love with it. I think for a lot of their shows, even though I love original Takarazuka musicals a lot, and it's like, I think any other Western musical they did would run into kind of a similar problem to Chicago.
Yeah.
Of the critics saying, okay, we've already seen this. But I was thinking, like, Elizabeth is huge. People love Elizabeth. And nowadays, there's a lot of translations of it, but before, there were no English translations of it, and even fans who didn't speak any Japanese loved this show. So it's obviously something people can fall in love with, even without speaking Japanese. And I feel like it's something that a lot of people, it was like their gateway drug into Takarazuka. So even before they knew what Takarazuka was, they fell in love with this thing. So I feel like it would have a general appeal, and it hasn't been done in America before. So I think... And this is funny. This is me encouraging another production of Elizabeth. You'll never hear this again. But I think it would be a good one to bring over to America. Except, do they have to pay additional rights if they bring it over to another continent?
Maybe.
I don't think it would be worth it for them, cost-wise.
Yeah, it's very possible. I don't know how that stuff works. I mean, we're just fantasy planning anyway.
So maybe something that's familiar and is accessible but doesn't necessarily have an American version. Like, the first thing that pops into my mind, and I don't think this is the best, but would be something like Ocean's 11, which just because it's a original musical that's based off of a Western idea. I don't know, I think Oceans might just be too much, but something like that. I haven't seen Roman Holiday, but that's the other one that I thought of.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, where, like, I don't know that Oceans is the right one, but, like, something that's familiar but hasn't been done as a musical might be kind of an interesting middle ground.
Yeah, and they've been doing a lot of those taking American films and turning them into, oh, you know what would be so good? Singing in the Rain. Their production of Singing in the Rain is amazing.
Yeah.
Their production is really fun. It's been a while.
Actually, yeah, that would work well. It captures a lot of the very traditional Takarazuka tropes, like with Otokoyaku and Musumeyaku, but it also has that very 50s feel, and there's not currently a production, so...
Yeah.
And Singing in the Rain itself kind of would set the mood for a Takarazuka style finale pretty well, I think.
Yes.
If they wanted to do. And I certainly hope they would always do something like that, because even if a full hour-long Takarazuka review is a lot to digest for a totally uninitiated audience, I think having a taste of it is really important.
Yeah.
Yep.
How about you, Carly? Anything come to mind that you think?
I'm so bad at thinking of stuff like this. I think I think Elizabeth is a good one. Part of me wonders if it's not like a lot to take in because it is so long, and it is in an unfamiliar language, but it is also so they can do such visually beautiful things with it. We were talking about this a little bit before, and that might be enough. And it is a westernized. I mean, it's a German musical, so I think inherently it might be a little more relatable just because it is Western history, and it is kind of like even though the Takarazuka production is very Takarazuka, it is still like a more westernized story than some of the things that Takarazuka does. So
I wonder if some of the appeal of doing Chicago was minimalist set, and they actually borrowed the set from a different theater. And I'm thinking about, like, no theater doesn't have a huge set either. Like, they probably, in this day and age, just getting the sets and things over here is an enormous cost. So they would probably want to do something that they could borrow the set or do something minimalist with.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Elizabeth would be a little difficult. Well, I don't know.
You notice it never goes on tour, which makes me wonder just how hard it is to lug that set around.
A lot of the Elizabeth set, though, is based on their actual stage. Like, they use the rotating stage, and they use the actual elevators that are built in for most of their set. I don't know.
And I saw Elizabeth in Germany last March, and the set is completely different. It's not even remotely similar. It's like, oh, I have such a bad memory, but I feel like it was these like panels that kind of rotated a little bit, and they had things projected on them. The set was very, very minimal. It was these rotating panels and like a thing that came down. I know that's really descriptive, but it was a very minimal set. And not that the Takarazuka production in the state that it's in could necessarily adapt to that set as easily, but if it were that as opposed to what Takarazuka does, it would certainly be portable, I would imagine. Considering what they did for the background of the finale in New York and Chicago, I can't imagine it would be that difficult.
That's true. Although I wonder if they built that right there in the city.
I'm sure they did build it there. I read in a Playbill article that they were going to build a grand staircase, and I got really excited, but that super didn't happen.
Yeah, that was not a grand staircase.
Yeah.
I do not think that word means what you think it means.
No. I was shocked when I read it, and then a little disappointed when it didn't happen, but I was wondering if Playbill got some misinformation, or I don't know. But it was still a pretty glittering set piece.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So all three of us have experienced Takarazuka in Japan and in New York City now, and the New York City fan experience was definitely interesting in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Well, for my first viewing of Chicago, I just sat there for a while going, am I really watching OGs on stage in New York? And it took that whole performance just to even let it sink in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Carly, you were there for the whole run. Like, did you notice anything different in just, like, the fan reactions inside and outside the theater from the first day until the end of it?
Yeah, it was very different. There was, so the first The first two performances, sadly, had a little bit of a, I would say, difficult atmosphere. There were definitely a lot of journalists. All of the news coverage came out of the first 2 days, which makes me a little bit sad because I think they would have seen a much better show later in the run. But at the same time, I think part of the reason the audience reaction was what it was the first 2 days was because the audience was filled more with journalists and probably Lincoln Center patrons than fans, a combination of fans and at least Japanese culture enthusiasts who, if not completely aware of what they were signing up for, at least went into it with a curiosity and a genuine interest instead of, oh, something's at Lincoln Center and I'm rich and bored. So the first 2 days, throughout, they got an amazing reaction at the end of every number. People were clapping, people were cheering, people were yelling. A lot of the Japanese fans on Twitter said they were shocked at how vocal the audience was, shocked and happy. That was my biggest shock. The first time I ever went to Japan, I was so excited. I nearly passed out. I had to do breathing exercises in the theater because I was losing the feeling in my hands and toes. And the people next to me were just like applauding politely. And I was like, why are you guys yelling? I don't understand this. This is so good. This is so exciting. Somebody yell. And that was an interesting adjustment. So, and of course, as I kept going to the theater, I realized that that's just Japanese culture. And now it was the reverse. The Japanese fans coming over here on the tour were experiencing the opposite. So even the first 2 days, they got that kind of reaction. But in between, there was a lot of awkward laughter. People would snicker whenever somebody pronounced a Japanese word poorly. People were snickering throughout the finale, often just from the way it looked. I know, like, there's a scene where Asaji Saki comes out, and I mean, she took my breath away because her Tokuyaku pose looks exactly the same as it did in frickin' 1998.
Yes.
And I thought she looked gorgeous and amazing, and like the curtain rose on her silhouette and everybody giggled because, I mean, I don't know. I'm not even going to pretend to understand why, but
feeling
so
a little
that was very much the first 2 nights. And then Friday was a completely different story. I think Friday and the Saturday matinee especially were the weekend crowd. I think most of the people who were excited about Takarazuka traveled in over the weekend. And B, Sailor Moon fans who came to see Yamato Yuga. And that made a huge difference. The reactions on Friday and Saturday afternoon were incredible. There was even yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so Jen and I were in a group on Friday night where we had paid a little extra and we had really good seats. Oh, I don't know if it was that we were in the hardcore fan section, but yes, you could definitely tell a change in energy. Carly, is it okay if I talk a little bit about the kind of reverse culture shock of audience behavior?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So it's interesting for me because I do go to Japan to watch Takarazuka and to watch OG productions, and you find yourself, just trying to conform to the Japanese audience. I'm not going to cheer or whoop the way that I might in an American theater. And as it is, I feel like, I tend to smile very broadly and I feel like I draw attention to myself. But then coming into an American theater, and some of the people on the Facebook group were actually saying, let's make sure that we show the Takarajians, that we welcome them and that we're really enthusiastic. So actually cheering at the end of numbers, that was a different experience. And now I'm worried that I'm ruined for life the next time I go back to Japan.
It felt weird, didn't it? Like, I felt really weird cheering, and I specifically wanted to try, even though, like, even when I'm just a quieter person, so even when I see Broadway shows normally, it's just not my personality to cheer. Like, I'll smile, I'll clap really enthusiastically, but I had to, like, force myself to cheer because I wanted them to have that New York cheer. And That was weird. There were so many things about this week that were just the polar opposite of everything I've been taught as a Takarazuka fan.
Yes.
All right, I gotta jump in here because I've read a lot of like OG who have written books about their experiences when they were in Takarazuka, and all of them from like the 1960s up until the modern day, whenever they talk about going on foreign tours, they always talk about like how shocked they were by the audience reactions, but they also talk about how much they loved the enthusiasm and the noise and like just the warmth and the acceptance that they felt from the audiences. So I guess I was kind of going into it expecting that. So I just was like determined to make as much noise as I could, and I really really loved it. It was a lot of fun.
And you can see them feeding off of it as the show progressed. By the last day, they were hamming it up so much, and the quality of the finale changed. The first night, I mean, I was thrilled. It was amazing to see. I mean, it was amazing to see former top stars come out in feathers. It was amazing to see Akuro Envy in New York. It was amazing to hear Sumire no Hana in New York. But my overall impression of the finale, as somebody who goes to see Takarazuka fairly regularly, was that it was a little bit of a cheap knockoff of a Takarazuka review. But then as it went on, the energy got so much better, and I was madly in love with it by the end. So I think it makes me happy. I hope that they fed off of our energy and got more energy themselves. It certainly looked like that was the case, and if that is the case, that makes me really happy.
I feel like, and again, I came on Friday, so I don't really know what the reactions were Wednesday, Thursday, but just the difference between like Friday and Saturday, I felt like there was a bigger Japanese presence, and like you said, a lot of the foreign fans who are familiar with the quote-unquote rules of Takarazuka fandom were also there that weekend. And I don't know if Wednesday and Thursday had this, but I felt like from the show on Friday through the two shows on Saturday and then the show on Sunday, in Takarazuka, it's traditional when the top star comes out on stage for the first time, the audience claps. And I felt like the first time I was there on Friday, some of them got clapped for, some it was really awkward and they did not. And then in the encore, there was a little bit more clapping. But, like, I felt throughout the run through Sunday, it got more and more and more and more. And I think we were lucky enough to be up in the front rows with the Japanese fans the first couple, or most of the shows that I went to see. So there were a couple times when, like, because there's a couple former top musume yaku who didn't have big roles, and people weren't really clapping for them. So I was like, you know what? Hell with this. So I started clapping, and I think once the Japanese fans heard us clapping, they started clapping too, and then the whole theater was like, oh, people are clapping. I don't know why, but I'm going to join in. So I feel like maybe we helped train them to
Yeah,
so
I definitely got that impression. There were a couple of parts where I wanted every single top star to get an entrance reaction during the finale especially, but there are some parts that it's like really obvious that you should clap now, and there's some parts that's awkward. Like the whole first number is fine, like the curtain rises on Mariko and she looks freaking fabulous and she's just standing there and doesn't even sing, so it's really easy to clap. And then like Tani comes out and the spotlight comes on her and she pauses and everybody claps, and then Mizu does the same thing, and like that's great. But then the next number, like Zenko comes out, and the second the spotlight comes on, she starts singing. So like there were a couple times where people would like make like one clap and then stop because they felt like it wasn't appropriate to drown out her voice, and like that was awkward. And then like Wataru would come out and people weren't sure if they should clap because they didn't just clap for Zenko, and it got like really weird. But
yeah,
I think by Sunday everyone was trying to force the claps in there, and some were louder than others, but it made me happy that we tried.
Yeah, we tried.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
It was really fun. It was really fun. Seeing them on stage in New York was very, very strange. I think the first night that I heard Sumire no Hana start in New York City, I was just overcome, and it, just because that's like the most Takarazuka song, and in my normal day-to-day fan life, you know, it's like so overplayed and so cheesy, and you know, I've seen Hatsuka's agent sing it on TV 100,000 times because it's always her and all this stuff. But then, like, being in Lincoln Center and that song starting, I just started, I started crying. It was such a weird, amazing feeling.
Yeah, I was definitely bouncing in my seat. And when I saw, like, in the playbill, they had the list of all the numbers and the songs that they were doing. And when I saw that Sumire no Hana was in there, I got really excited, especially because my brother was coming to see it. And my brother's the one who helped do the arrangement for our podcast. So I was just like, awesome! He gets to actually hear the song live. That's so cool. I was excited.
Awesome.
That is really cool.
I think the actresses also definitely got kind of swept up in the New York fan experience as the shows went on also. At first, no one was really sure if they were doing stage door. There was a lot of conflicting information. They specifically banned stage door for Chicago in Japan because of the number of OGs in the cast. The theaters don't want that many people hanging out outside. Which is a little weird to me because, I mean, when actual current Takarazuka does a show at the Umeda Arts Theater, they still have Demachi, and that's got to be more people. But I don't know. I don't make the rules.
Well, although, yeah, I was going to say, a lot of the tours, they usually do say there's not going to be any Demachi. I know a lot of times when Tsukigumi went on tour, they were like, sorry, no Demachi at any of these theaters. So I think it's about whether they have staff to support having Demachi too.
That could be it too.
And one of the new Tokyo theaters they've been using, I forget what it is, but it's a new big one in Tokyo. I think they were only doing Demachi on Shonichi and Senshuraku. So it's, I think some theaters are just better about it than others.
And we didn't get any notification, or at least, I don't know if anybody else did, but I didn't get any notification from my staff about whether or not they would for New York. They just sort of gave notice about all the other shows and specifically didn't mention New York, so nobody had any idea what was going on, and people were asking Lincoln Center, and the first 2 days, not a lot happened, and then I think as more fans showed up, more people got sort of brave and waited by the stage door, and the cast got gradually more and more generous, and it seemed like a lot of people had a lot of fun.
Yes.
Definitely. It's funny because I watched from the stage door, and sometimes I was thinking, no, I missed the gallery where everyone was neatly lined up and no one's going to just walk in front of you and block your view. But it certainly, there were opportunities that you would never, ever see in Japan. So, like just the opportunity to talk to your star, I saw some people were able to do, and I've heard some friends of just having really memorable experiences, and that was really cool.
Yeah, I loved, I guess part of me has become kind of cynical about Damachi and Irimachi now. So I kind of stood back and just watched for a lot of it, but just watching the fans who'd never been to Japan and never had an opportunity like this get to talk to people. Like, I saw so many fans in happy tears, let's make it clear.
Yeah.
But just in tears of excitement of having been able to talk to or get signatures from or get a picture with their favorite OGs, and that was just, I soaked that up. That made it all worth it. And I also thought it was hilarious, a lot of the company, the ones who weren't former top stars, I got a lot of fun out of going and talking to them, and a lot of times, you'd say their name and they'd look at you and they were like, oh my gosh, you recognized me, wow. Which I got kind of a kick out of that. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I didn't go to the stage door either, but I got reports from a friend who was staying with me who did go, and I watched another star kind of have a gathering with her fan club, but she allowed some non-club fans to join, and people who've been fans for 5-10 years and never had an opportunity to go to Japan and never had an opportunity to do any of this stuff were getting handshakes and conversations and hugs, and that was great. That made me really happy. I'm so happy that the cast was enjoying the attention from their foreign fans as much as the fans were undoubtedly enjoying the very, very unusual attention from the cast.
And I have to say I was really happy. There was some members who obviously weren't feeling comfortable with it. Like Zunko is really well known for being super shy, and so she would always leave pretty quickly with like glasses on, you know, hat drawn down, and nobody like jumped in front of her or impositioned her or anything like that. People would let the actresses go who obviously didn't want to stop and talk. So I was like, I feel like we might have pressured some of them a little bit just because we were so excited, but I don't think anybody felt uncomfortably pressured. At least I hope so. It seemed like a good atmosphere.
I haven't heard any. Yeah, I agree. I haven't heard any like terrible stories. So I know a lot of people were really excited, and I know how hard it is to rein in that excitement when it's your first time. So I think we did a good job. I'm very proud of all of us as a fandom for being respectful, but also getting pretty much everything we wanted.
I wonder did any of the Japanese fans tell you what they thought of it? Were any of your friends there, like watching the foreign fans going crazy?
Most of the Japanese fans that came over, I didn't, other than Yuki, who is like the queen of the New York City Facebook group, and Sakiko, who is like the queen of everything. I didn't get to talk to any Japanese fans who live in New York and went to see the shows, so all of the ones who I knew came over through the tour group, and they're all in fan clubs, so I don't think any of them really went over and witnessed the stage door experience. Most of the actresses had an official demachi either on the last day or on her last day, and they had their normal fan experience at that time. Although there was one woman who is a Komu fan who I just recognized from seeing around the theaters, who came up to me at intermission on Saturday night with tears streaming down her face, like so happy and gasping, like she was so excited to hear her receive cheers, and just like so overcome by that, and overcome by how much bigger Komu's expressions were on stage as a result of receiving that reaction, that she was a mess. Cool. She was in tears, and it was so adorable. So I think the ones I talked to seemed to have a really good time.
It's funny because I'm a American-based fan who often travels to Japan to watch Takarazuka, and when I talk to Japanese fans, they say, "Oh, that's so cool, I can't believe you came so far." And it's funny, I was talking to some of the Komu fans who came to New York to see her, and I just cracked up because that was my first reaction of, "Oh my god, you came all the way here to see Komu?"
Yeah, it's a little ironic. It's also different though, because they see her every day pretty much, and still came all the way to New York to see her, as did all of the other fans of whomever. But those who did, I think, definitely got a special intimate fan experience that I imagine they found worth it based on what I was seeing. So hopefully the tour was a success. Hopefully everybody thought the show was a success, because I would certainly like to have another opportunity to do this in my lifetime. It was so much fun.
Yeah. I have to add one more thing about stage doors, because, and again, we're going to link to some of the social media of some of the actresses who were there, but a lot of them took advantage of their time in New York to go see other shows. And if you look at their blogs and Twitter accounts and things, they have a lot of pictures taken with their favorite actresses from Broadway shows, and just like they're going crazy, having a fun time running around. So I just thought it was really, really cute. Adorable. It's like the other side of the coin.
Oh man, I totally forgot I know I was trying to do something not Chicago related, but my actual happy thing of the week should have been those pictures of the cast meeting Cheetah Rivera, because oh my god, my heart has never melted so much in my entire life.
Yes. Wataru's expression and Mizu's expression, they were just like ecstatic. It was so cute.
It was so adorable to see them fangirling somebody as much as I feel like their expressions matched my insides all the time, and that was just so heartwarming to see. Oh God, those were so cute. We're gonna have to definitely link those on the blog for anybody who hasn't seen them because they're priceless.
Yeah, I think people have been linking to some of the pictures, but I don't think they've been linking to the right ones, because the ones with the expressions on Mizu's face and Wataru's face are the best.
Oh, they're so good. Okay, so I just want to run through everybody in the principal cast really quickly and talk about, I guess, our impressions. Having seen it 2 years ago, I was really excited by how much better everybody got. And I had a great time 2 years ago. I thought Chicago in 2014 was fantastic, and I was shocked by how much improvement I saw in some people. Um, Especially, well, just to go in sort of seniority order, we could start with Mama. Hatsukaze Jun is so adorable. I love her. But
Yes.
I really thought that 2 years ago she was showing her age. The other Mama at that time was Chiaki Shin, who was just so sassy and wonderful and really nailed it. And then by comparison, Hatsukaze Jun seemed like, she's having trouble remembering lines. She's having trouble enunciating, things like that. But she got so much sassier in the past 2 years. She really dialed it up. That made me so happy because she's certainly not getting any younger. I think she's 75 or something like that.
Wow.
Young at heart.
Young and heart.
Can I make a note about the role of Mama in the Takarazuka production?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of friends and I noted that a lot of her lines, especially in When You're Good to Mama, were they're translated very literally into Japanese. So things like "Let's all row together like the Princeton crew," it was much more just about rowing, and it strikes me as a really hard song to translate because in America there's a lot of innuendo there, and I would think that innuendo is one of the hardest things to translate. So
Absolutely.
I feel like that was lost, and then also they just completely dropped any angle that Mama Morton was a lesbian. So it was interesting watching her character kind of without any of that in there. That being said, I still thought Hatsukaze Jun did a really good job.
See,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, to me, even despite the fact that Billy's played by a woman, from the American to the Japanese version, the role of Mama is by far the most different because of those reasons.
But you know what? I mean, I feel like even though the wording might not be quite right, I feel like, and we haven't really talked about Mori Kayaki yet, but I feel like both of them tried with their sassiness and just the outfit that they were wearing and just in general, like, through their acting, I think they tried to convey some of that got lost in translation. I didn't think it was that bad of a job, actually.
Yeah. I do think they did a pretty remarkable job with their attitudes, considering the lyrics they were singing. Because the translation, the subtitles, or the super titles rather, were just the original song lyrics. So they did not translate the Japanese back into English so the American audience actually knew what the Japanese actresses were saying. So really the only people missing the innuendos were the Japanese audience. But so consider the performance paired with the super titles, I did not think was as disconnected as it could have been, considering. So
yeah. There were some times when the American audience was definitely laughing at the lyrics and the Japanese audience had no clue what we were laughing at.
Yeah, and the timing was a little off because the super titles would show the punchline before she actually said the punchline, and that was a little strange. So Mori Kayaki was an addition to the 2016 cast. She did not play Mama in the 2014 cast, and I got so excited when they announced that because I love her. And I thought she was amazing. I thought she was so good.
Oh, I just fell in love with her over these past couple of days. She was never an actress that I'd seen her in a lot of specials and things like that. I'm trying to think if I ever saw one of her full-length shows. Maybe not. But yes, totally fell in love with her. Her enthusiasm and charisma was just amazing. And her voice, oh my god.
Her voice is so incredible. It's hard to get a hold of her shows, so I think I've seen her in TCA specials. I think the only full-length performance of hers that I've seen from her Takarazuka career is Chushingura, which I love. I think it was really the first Nihon Mono I ever watched that I actually appreciated because it was just I followed it. It was paced really well. It was really beautiful. And she just has this very, very Yukigumi, very stately samurai image to me. But she's also this wonderful, bubbly person. And her voice is so amazing. And she was just so sassy and wonderful as Mama Morton. I could not have been happier that she was the choice they made to replace Chiaki Shin, who also did an amazing job. But that was really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it always got lost because, like, I really loved the Moon Troupe of that time and the Flower Troupe actresses of that time. So, like, Snow Troupe kind of got a little lost after some of my favorites from them retired in the 80s. So I'm like, oh, maybe I need to go back and check them out in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely recommend her. Her Yukigumi is very strong, I think, personally. I mean, I'm biased, but I think it's very strong. And then, so our three Billies were first Mine Saori, and then Asaji Saki, and then Shizuki Asato. And, I mean, the three of them could not be more different from each other.
Definitely.
Becca, did you also see all three?
Yes, I also saw all three. I think because the first time when I saw Mine Saori, it was my first viewing, and also I just didn't know her very well, so she didn't leave as much of an impression.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree, they were all very different.
Yeah. Mine Saori is my least favorite personally. I think she has an incredible singing voice, but I think she gets away with a lot in Japan because she's technically not the most senior member of the cast in the sense that Hatsukaze Jun is her senpai, but she's the most senior former otokuyaku in the cast, and by default, therefore, the most senior member of the cast. So I think her star power takes her pretty far when they're performing this in Japan, and her interpretation of Billy does not have as much depth as Mariko's and Zunko's, in my opinion. But I always like hearing her sing. I think she has a very powerful voice that still has a lot of strength despite her age.
See, now, I didn't see Mine Saori's production, but some of my friends that I talked to were actually very impressed and really liked her. So I guess it depends on what appeals to you, too.
Yeah. I love Mariko's Billy so much.
Oh my god.
I have to give Mariko some credit. I feel like her voice has gotten better over the years. She will never be a great singer, but I feel compared to when she was the Hoshigumi top star that she has gotten better.
Mm-hmm. I agree. When I saw her in 2014, my jaw dropped because, I mean, again, still compared to the other two, she really can't compete vocally, but for my history of hearing her, and it was incredible. She did an incredible job 2 years ago. This year was not quite up to that level, but I still think she certainly did well enough considering, and nobody is a match for her comedic timing. She was just so on point. She got the most laughs. She was so charming. I love her Billy so much.
She's such a great actress. It's just...
Yeah, she really is.
Now, I noticed between Mariko's and Zunko's, like, in the one number where they're kind of surrounded by the feathers, they both had, like, a different little action that they did. Like, Mariko blew at the feathers. I can't remember what Zunko did. Did Mine Saori have something that she did, too?
She played it kind of straight. She didn't really do anything.
But man, Mariko got the biggest laughs every time she did that.
Yeah. She did a great job. And Zunko's, I mean, her songs blew me away. I love listening to Zunko sing. I think her acting is also fabulous, and her interpretation of Billy just doesn't appeal to me as much as Mariko's does. She took a much more, like, I am so much better than you, slimy, sleazy take on the character, which worked, but there were so many, especially in the scenes where she was interacting with other characters. I think Mariko just nailed them so hard, and Zunko's interactions with the other characters maybe left a little more to be desired, but her songs were just, the first time I heard her sing All I Care About, I was just like overwhelmed at the end of it.
Yes.
For me, I would say out of the three Billies, I liked Zuko the best. That I agree that Mariko is a really, really good actress, but I wanted to be blown away by the songs, and that's what I felt like I got with Zuko.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I'm trying to remember where I read this, because I feel like it was Zuko. It might have been your friend's interviews that you posted the other day, and I think it was Zuko out of the three of them who was talking about how she said it was really different preparing for this role because it wasn't a Takarazuka Otokoyaku, it was an actual male role. So she's like, I have to approach it very differently. I thought that was very interesting insight into how they were preparing for the show.
And one thing I wanted to mention overall is that, with the exception of maybe Isono-san, that most of the Otokoyaku OGs didn't have their makeup on as heavily as you would see in a normal Takarazuka production.
Definitely.
I think that what Zenko was saying about preparing a role that's a real man as opposed to an Otokoyaku had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then our three Velmas were Waoyoka and Mizunatsuki and Kozuki Wataru. Ooh. And I don't think it's a coincidence that WoW got all the press. I think that I don't. Well, I shouldn't say I just love the other two so much. I love their Velmas so much. In my mind, it's hard for WoW to compete. So I was a little disappointed that, again, I think I said this before, that the press didn't get to see one of the later casts. But I also didn't see her in 2014. She's the only Velma I did not see then. So I don't know what changed between then and now. But she doesn't look like she's aged. She's still beautiful. She's still tall. She's still very striking. I think she has not kept up her dancing as much as Mizu and Wataru have. Although that's such an unfair comparison because Mizu and Wataru are both
amazing dancers.
Amazing dancers and have somehow figured out how not to age at all. So
I've been under the impression that I know WoW, she had that fall back in 2006 right before her Taidon, and I feel like she's had trouble recovering ever since. Like, she does fine, but I think just ever since then her dancing has suffered. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
I also, like, as soon as I saw the first production, the fact that they climb up on those ladders without any kind of harness, I thought to myself, oh my god, poor WoW. Because, I don't know, for those of you who are newer fans or who might not know, in 2000, was it 5 or 6? Anyway,
it's either
just
2005
WoW,
or 6.
She had, like, a little concert show, not on the main theater stage, and there was a part where she was lifted up on a swing kind of a thing, and one show she fell and she broke her hip, and ever since then they have been extremely careful whenever they have their actresses in Takarazuka productions being lifted up that they are locked in with some kind of rope or something like that. So when I saw this, I thought to myself, oh my god, don't let anybody fall. And then I thought, poor WoW, she's probably like terrified of doing something like this. Like climbing these ladders in heels. I don't know.
Oh my god, I'm so scared when they're up the ladders. But on Shonichi, the part at the beginning of All That Jazz where the ensemble lifts Velma up and carries her completely horizontally from, point A to point B, her face was terrified the first night. Like, she put the one leg up, and then as they were grabbing her other leg to lift her completely off the ground, she looked so scared. But she got it together, and I thought she did a really good job with that number in particular. There were a couple of others where she kind of struggled with the choreography, but I guess it's just unfortunate that she has to compare herself to Mizu and Wataru, who are freaks of nature, because she really didn't do a bad job at all. But I don't know. Mizu is my personal favorite Velma.
Seconded.
Oh gosh.
Oh gosh. I
Mizu.
I love. Oh, go on.
Go ahead. I was gonna say I love Zunko, Komu, and Wataru together specifically because the three of them have such chemistry because this is the third time they've done it together now, but you can't beat Mizu in my mind as Velma.
I was like, what happened? At some point, Mizu's energy and charisma has like exploded. Like as soon as she walked on stage, she filled it up. And like, I mean, I loved her. I saw most of her shows as a top star, and I watched her from like Shinko leads on up. And I'm like, what happened? Who is this woman? Because she was, I think, out of all the cast, she was the Broadway star. She had the charisma.
Agreed.
She had the voice. She had the dancing. Like, I don't know. I was just super, super impressed.
And I had a lot of friends who came to see Tani specifically because who'd never seen Takarazuka before, who have been Sailor Moon fans since they were 8 years old, and it's their time to shine. They're coming in to see Tani, and every single one of them at the end of the show were coming up to me like, "Who is that Velma?"
It's funny for me.
I heard a lot on the internet too. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's bad. I was telling Jen earlier. Anyway, so it's funny. I saw Mizu live when she was in Otokoyaku, and I liked her well enough. I thought she did a good job in Elizabeth and things like that, but she was never one of my favorites. But I would say, for me, she was the best out of the entire cast, the one who was the biggest standout. And yes, her charisma just knocks you over.
Yeah, I agree. I think not just the best Velma. Mizu pretty much won the show as far as I'm concerned. And then Wataru is amazing in a different way. To me, she makes no attempt at pretending to be Velma at all. She's just Wataru in a tiny dress, which is fine with me. But she's a lot of fun to watch. She's just so flirty and ridiculous and feeds off of the audience energy. She's a joy.
Wataru just struck me as so happy the entire time that she was up there. It was more just like she was Velma who, everything was going her way, and then suddenly, wait a minute, what do you mean that Roxie is starting to steal all the spotlight? I'm also just amazed at how princely Wataru can look even when she's wearing a dress or a little miniskirt.
But at the same time, and she was one of those actresses that when she retired, but then she retired and she didn't go back on stage right away. Like, she did some private concerts, but she didn't like jump back in the musical scene. And I thought to myself, I wasn't sure if she was one of those otokoyaku who would make the changeover, but she is a beautiful, striking woman,
Oh, yeah.
And I think I was shocked at the fact that she could do that, because to me she was always one of the most manly otokoyaku, and one of the actresses who really, she loved being an otokoyaku. She loved, not in a like self-absorbed way, but I think she loved giving to fans, as an otokoyaku, because I think she probably went through a time period where she was a fan of otokoyaku. Like, she really got it, and she really had that symbiosis with her fans, and I think that's still true. Like, she was one of the ones at the stage doors who was the most into like talking to fans and signing things and stuff like that. And I was surprised that she didn't fill the stage as much as Mizu did, because my memories of her are just this bigger than life actress. So, but I loved her Velma. It was very cute Velma, definitely.
Yeah, that's Wataru's just huge and adorable. You guys have to like not let me talk about Roxie that much.
Oh, what's your moment?
Go ahead, get it out of your system now.
Okay, so I'll talk about Tani first, because I didn't see her 2 years ago either. I'm hugely biased, as I doubt anybody listening to this doesn't know. I enjoyed her performance a lot more than I thought I would. She's not like, when she was in Takarazuka, she wasn't really my type. And I've seen the Sailor Moon musicals, and I enjoy her in the Sailor Moon musicals. But I haven't really seen her in anything. I don't know that she's done much since retiring other than the Sailor Moon musicals, but she impressed me a lot. She was I imagine if Tani was really in that situation, that might just be how she handles it. the impression I got. But she was very funny. She got a lot of laughs. She was a very adorable, like charismatic, airheaded kind of Roxy. And I thought she did a really good job.
I agree that Tani made some really good faces throughout. And then she's another one who I would say, compared to when I saw her as a top star in Takarazuka, I feel like her singing has gotten a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say about Tani, though, is where I feel like Komu did better is when they're doing the song Roxy. It's really her moment to kind of give a monologue and to let the audience see her, and that's where I thought Komu went much deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I feel like, alright, so when I got into Takarazuka, Tani was still like, she wasn't really an underclassman, but she was still kind of like down on the bottom of the totem pole, and she was never one of my favorites, but she was one of my favorites to mock. Like, I like Tani, but like, she just makes these ridiculous faces. But at the same time, like, having a comedic touch is something that all the Takarazuka actresses talk about. Like, doing a comedy is the most difficult thing. And I think Tani always had the comic timing and the expressions down. Like, whenever Tani was in a comedy, I would always love to go and watch her because she's just, it's so absorbing to just watch the faces she can make. And I feel like she really got to do that as Roxy. So I liked Komu's a lot. And I'm sure we'll talk about Komu in a minute. But I think of the two, Tani was actually my favorite, which I was not expecting at all. But she just had me cracking up all the time. It was a lot of fun.
She definitely had the comedy side down a little bit better, I think. Her faces were priceless. Absolutely priceless. 2 years ago, we also had Takashiro Kei was a Roxy, and I think I think they were actually kind of similar. I mean, I'm not complaining that she decided not to come because I got to see Komu 4 times, but she was also very good. But Komu was like, I've never seen that Komu before. Just like, she was so sexy and so over the top, and that's not usually the Komu that I see. I felt this way before, too. The one thing that makes me sad is I don't think she's confident in her natural voice. I sense that she thinks she can't be cute or feminine enough if she sings in her range. And I always, like, her Roxy 2 years ago also just left me, like, hungry for her vocal power. And so that was a little bit disappointing. She has this, like, it's not high, but she puts on this cutesy voice that modulates a lot, and it makes it so she can't really, I mean, she has, like, amazing vibrato, and her voice is so, like, low and awesome, and she can't hold a note when she's doing this weird up and down thing. So I wish she would sing in her Komu voice.
It was a little cutesy.
But yeah. But I just love her Roxy. I love her Roxy so much.
Now, you said that on Senshuraku, on the last night, she actually upped that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in the middle of the Roxy song, there's a part where she, like, does a little come hither thing to the audience and then turns around and just does this, like, sexy wiggle thing. I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, it's not, the part itself is in the song every time. So it's not improvised, but, like, she improvised it way, way, way sexier on the last night. Like, I was a little uncomfortable with how sexual she made it. But at the same time, like, I mean, I know her best out of everybody in the cast, and I know how she normally is, and I know that she had to have been having such a good time to feel comfortable doing that, so that made me really happy.
Yeah, that was the only production, unfortunately, that I saw with her in it, and yeah, I was like, whoa, not expecting that at all. But I really enjoyed it. I thought, actually, that made it very Roxy, because, I mean, that is Roxy. She over-sexualizes everything. She's very, like, self-absorbed, and I thought that was great. I really enjoyed it.
I wish I could relive the whole thing over and over again. So I think I was talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but nobody gives Hoshino Yuri and Aonoyuki enough credit because they are both fantastic and they are both in every single show, every single day, doing an amazing job. My parents came to see it on Saturday night, and my mom keeps talking about what an amazing dancer Marima was. And so I was so excited. I wrote a little comment on her Facebook, like, my mom fell in love with you. You did a good job.
One thing that was very shocking for me throughout the entire production, but especially with the former Musumeyaku top stars, was the costumes that they're wearing. I wouldn't say that it's anything that's inappropriate, but it's definitely Chicago. Like, what Marima wears for most of the show is basically just almost like a black bikini, sort of. And so for me, it was very shocking seeing someone who I used to see as, doing top star pair dances to wear something like that.
Yeah, Marima's body is very much on display. I mean, not that not all of the ladies in the ensemble are not very much on display, but the combination of her particular costume and how front and center she is and how just her dance style.
Yeah.
You see a lot of her.
I feel like, again, in your friend's interview, didn't they mention that the costumes were actually designed by the same people who designed the Chicago costumes for the Broadway?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're identical.
And I loved how they were like, and they wanted to make sure that the skirts were long enough so that it was still classy. And I was like, classy? What Chicago is this?
I don't think it ever fell into the range of being unclassy, but definitely very different from your normal Takarazuka costumes.
I was super excited because I remember, I think it was Edward VIII, there was one scene where Marimo was actually doing this like belly dance thing in a costume that was very much like that. I was just like, oh, cool! Marimo's gonna be dancing again. She's such a good dancer. I love it.
She's an incredible dancer. And I want to give a special shout out to Manami Sora, who was the jury in the courtroom scene. Got so many laughs. I think she maybe made her whole thing a little more obvious than last time, because she did roughly the same thing 2 years ago. But again, I don't know if it's just the Japanese audience just doesn't react like the American audience does, or the Japanese audience is probably primarily filled with Top Star fans who have their opera glasses on their Top Star. And aren't really paying attention to what Manami Sora is doing on a chair in the background. But her courtroom scene is just freaking hilarious. She was so funny. I had to periodically stop looking at Komu to look at her. And the audience definitely saw her and definitely appreciated what she was doing. And that made me so happy. So for those who haven't seen it, what she does is she plays the whole jury. So she starts off in the first seat, and as the scene progresses, she just gradually moves one seat over and like puts on a different hat and a different wig and has like a different thing. She goes from like a blind man to a crazy woman to a nun to a drunk to it's amazing.
And she's so smooth at it. Like,
yes.
If you, like, the first show, I wasn't even paying attention and I missed it. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
If you're not staring at her, you don't even see it happen. It's incredible.
No, yeah.
I love that part. And then we get the finale.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to back us up.
Go ahead.
We didn't talk about Isono-san.
Yes, she was amazing.
Yes. Okay, actually, of everybody from 2014 to 2016 who powered up, I think she powered up the most.
Really?
I was a little disappointed in her Amos 2 years ago. I thought she just played him really dumb.
Yeah.
And this year, he was just so great. He had so much depth. It was wonderful. She did such a wonderful job with Amos.
I got kind of teary-eyed in that scene where she's like, my exit music, please! And then she's like, oh.
For what it's worth, at least the audience gave her a really good applause.
Oh, everybody loved her. Yeah, it was great.
But that was also, that scene was made so much better by the New York audience. That was really great.
Yeah.
I felt like Isono-san really brought this very kind of classic older otokoyaku presence to the production.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was nice because, I mean, I think she was the only one out of that group who had been in Senka, is that correct? I'm not sure if Hatsukaze Jun was in Senka at all.
At least
Wataru
Wataru and So had been in Shinsenka, but...
Oh, that's right. But, I mean, because I think being in Senka gives you a depth that you don't get
Yes.
just being in the regular troops over the time. So,
Yeah,
it was cool. She's always going to be, you know, like the uncle, and having her play Amos was, like, perfect.
Yeah, she did such an outstanding job and improved so much. I really loved her Amos this time around.
I loved her Mr. Cellophane. I was just like, oh.
Yeah. Her Amos was this really good combination of, on one hand, yes, she is a little bit dumb, but on the other hand, there's also this sorrow about the fact that everyone is ignoring her and that she loves Roxie, but is just getting trampled over.
Yeah, I think that was missing before, and that's all of Amos's charm right there. So I was really happy to see that she had kind of found it.
Cool.
And really happy to see that the audience gave her the reaction that she deserved.
Can I back us up 1 minute? We didn't really talk about Hoshina Yuri, who is the other former top musumeyaku, and she's ageless. Like, that woman has not aged at all. She must be in her late 40s or early 50s, and she did not look it at all. And she's one of the characters who, because she's kind of speaking gibberish, because she never really speaks Japanese or English, except for her, like, not guilty. Like, she did it all with the depth of her acting, and I thought she gave a superstar performance. She
really did.
She was just gorgeous, and it was so sad. It broke your heart, really.
I think Komu said at one point that no matter what production of Chicago she watches, Yuri's Hanyak is always her favorite. And I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah.
Becca, were you going to say something else? Or
I was just going to say, backing up to Isono-san, that it's always been my headcanon that Amos gets remarried to a very nice lady and that they have a big happy family together. I'm sorry, I'm a sap.
I hope so.
I'll take that headcanon. Okay, can we talk about the finale now?
Yes, of course. The encore.
The encore, yes. The Takarazuka encore, which, interestingly, was specifically requested by Lincoln Center. Thank you, Lincoln Center.
Yay! Thank you, Lincoln Center.
I'm impressed and happy and grateful that they had the foresight and understanding to see that Chicago is not really an example of what Takarazuka is or does, and that they wanted to give everybody a little bit of a glimpse into the more realistic world of Takarazuka with this encore. I think that was smart. I certainly appreciated it because I am just a hot fan mess over this finale. And it got received strangely the first two nights, but as it went on, everybody whose impressions I read online or who I overheard in the theater seemed to really, really like it. So I'm so glad it was in there.
Yes.
Especially seeing them all come out in their Kuro Envy, the tailcoat dance at the end where all of the Otokuyaku traditionally come out together. And in this case, even the Musumeyaku were in tailcoats, which was so fun
cool
to see.
I really want to know what they thought about being able to do that dance with the Otokuyaku, because some of them, must have been loving it.
Me too. I gotta find some ensemble member and comment on her blog or something and see if she answers. But especially when Marimo and Yuri came out in their tailcoats the first night, my breath caught in my throat. I was so excited to see them like that. But just, I mean, they all still look amazing, but some of them in particular, like, even with her long ponytail, like, Mizu's profile in a tailcoat has not changed. And,
agreed.
Like, Wataru might as well just still be in Takarazuka.
Yes. And Mariko, too. Oh, my God. Because Mariko opens the first number in the encore. And when I joined fandom, she had retired and, moved to Brazil. And she was married with kids. And I was like, I'm never going to see this woman live. And to see her live, and not only just live, but, and I'm pretty sure I've seen these costumes on these women before. I think they actually pulled these out from, 20 years ago. I was just oh, my God. I've seen her dance in that costume before. And I was just, my breath stopped. It was amazing.
Well, I know that and I want to talk about the Rockette a little bit too, but I know the Rockette costumes were pulled directly from the recent production of Guys and Dolls, and then a friend mentioned that some of the Musume costumes were pulled from Hot Eyes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right. They might have pulled out some of the older costumes for some of the former top stars, but I think kind of the ensemble costumes were all from recent shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But I like the white ones that Komu and was it Wow were wearing?
It was Wow.
Like,
yeah.
I swear to God, I've seen those costumes on Wow before. I was like, I know
Mm-hmm.
she's worn that before. So
Complete with the little tummy window.
yes, complete with the tummy window. And I also have to say, Mizu's ponytail, like, suddenly I was back in the 90s with Maya Miki and her
Yes.
Otokoyaku ponytail, and I was just like, oh.
But the song that they chose for the Kodoranbi just really stopped my heart. I love that song, and it's like such a quintessential Kodoranbi song, and that was one of the, like, hearing the dun 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 dun. It's just like one of the most powerful parts of the whole experience for me, I think. And when they do the whole like arm sweep around leg thing, I just wanted to die.
Yes. I was never a huge fan of Meerkats, but it was a good choice for
yes.
the Rockette.
Yeah. When I read that in the program, I was like, Meerkat, really? And then by the end of it, I was clapping along. I think I love that song now.
I wanted to give a shout out to Hayami Sei and Kitori Maria, who don't actually appear in the show itself, but they are the first two people who appear in the finale, and I just feel like there was so much pressure on them that the top actresses in the Chicago production come out and they explain to you what you're going to see, and then there's just this kind of gradually climbing music, and there's a disco ball that's flashing light everywhere, and then they have to come out and just kind of blind you with their sheer enthusiasm, and they do it.
I don't think it was Hayami Sei, because she came down through the audience, so she wasn't one of the first ones up on the stage.
sorry. It's Kitori Maria, and I forget who. It's an Otokoyaku.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, I felt like the Rockette girls who came through the audience, that they kind of gained some confidence over time. At first, they looked a little bit shy, but by the last performance, they were going out of their way to make sure that they gave high fives to the audience members, and it just really got everyone into it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it was Hayami Sei and Komi Maito on my side. And
yes,
Komi Maito gave me a high five, and she was just like, she was smirking. She was really into it. It was really funny. She was really enjoying it. You're right.
Yeah, I was definitely pleased with the rise in energy of the finale over the course of the show. I'm glad they gained confidence. I'm glad they had fun with it. It was so amazing. That was the weirdest part, because that felt the most Takarazuka, and seeing that outside of Japan was such a strange feeling.
Yes, but I loved it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I have one question though. What did you guys think of Zunko's number with the Roxanne?
I guess I'm the odd person out because I really liked it.
I was disappointed. They did that song in Super Gift, which was an OG like ensemble show commemorating the 10th anniversary of Umeda Arts Theater.
Uh-huh.
And I watched the Sky Stage recording of that, and honestly found pretty much the entire show really boring, except for that number, which was on fire. Like, it was basically just Zunko singing her heart out in the background, and then Wataru dressed as an Otokoyaku tangoing with Anju Mira in a giant slit dress, and it was just exactly as hot as you imagine.
See, that makes sense. I do not understand. Like, Zunko is such a good singer, but she's not a hugely impressive dancer, and obviously she's out of practice with the lifts and things, and they had her doing these, and she kept like stumbling and dropping people, and I just felt so bad for her.
So I would have rather, I know they tried to keep, the Velmas and Roxies from the show in female costumes and the Billies in male costumes, but I would have just like let Zuko stand in the background and sing and put Wataru in a suit and let her tango with Hoshinaguri. That's all I want.
Yes,
that would have gone over so much better.
I think that was the only weak point for me in the encore was that number.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Zuko's voice. It was just, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she's also so much smaller than Wataru, and they're having her try and like lift her and drag her across the stage. It's just not.
Oh, it's so sad.
Know. It was. I mean, I don't want to say I didn't like it, but that was the only thing where I read because someone tweeted the song list ahead of time, and I thought I knew what to expect. I saw that song, and I said, "That's the song for Super Gift," and Wataru's in it, and Hoshinaguri's in it, and they're gonna tango, and then it didn't happen. So I felt like I was a little let down.
I really like Moulin Rouge, and they essentially use the arrangement of Roxanne from Moulin Rouge, so I was really excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the song was beautiful. I loved it. But, yeah.
So, I think lastly we wanted to talk a bit about the fan meetup and the brunch party and our special guest at the brunch party, which was a little bit of a surprise.
So first of all, thank you to Carly and to Jen for organizing. I had so much fun.
Giving ourselves a pat on the back here.
Yeah, Jen, you saved my life at the end of it pretty much.
It's just because I'm bossy. Sorry, everybody, for being bossy. But before we
that's what you need.
I just want to say thank you to everybody there. Like, I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but a lot of people like took the time to stop me and talk to me and thank me or just, talk. And I really appreciated that. Like, everybody I talked to, I was just like, oh, you guys are so awesome. Like, this is what makes fandom so awesome and why I really love Takarazuka fandom. And so thank you, everyone who talked to me. Like,
thank you so much.
It meant a lot. Thank you.
I felt so bad that I was confined to a chair, sort of, and I did not get to talk to everybody as much as I wanted to, but everyone seemed like they had a really good time, and I'm glad for that. I'm so thankful for everybody that decided to come. Especially, we got a special visit from Mitsuya Nao, who we interviewed on this podcast. She is a former otogayaku and still a voice coach with the company, and she is friends with friend of the show Sakiko, and she was in town for her concert, which I heard sold out, which makes me extremely happy.
I was a little sad I didn't get to go.
Yeah, I didn't get to go either.
Don't procrastinate is the lesson here on buying your tickets.
Exactly. So Sakiko very nicely brought her to the brunch, and she sang a couple of songs for us a cappella. She sang Saigo no Dansu, right? Or
yeah.
No, Aitoshi no Rondo.
I think it was Aitoshi no Rondo.
It was Aitoshi, yes. And she hadn't been expecting to sing it, like, so she had 2 seconds to prepare, and then she just busted out a cappella. I was so impressed.
Yeah, and then she sang Watashi dake ni in German, in perfect German. And one of my friends who I guess speaks German said her German pronunciation was flawless. So,
which, that doesn't surprise me as much because she's classically trained. So, but yeah, it was beautiful.
It was just wonderful. I was so happy she came. I was so happy she sang.
I was not expecting her to come. Like, I was just like, oh my god, wait, what? Ah!
Yeah. Sakiko had told me ahead of time that she was going to stop by and say hi as a thank you for the podcast and for I had created the flyer for her show. So Sakiko said she was going to stop by very quickly but didn't have a lot of time. So I did not expect her to hang out for a half hour and sing us some songs. I was very, very happy about that.
And she brought a bunch of signed books and CDs for us to give away too, which was just thank you, Mitsuya-san and Sakiko.
So
that was awesome. It was so cool.
Everybody had an amazing time.
Somehow it ended up being my job to hand out the questionnaires or something, and she wasn't someone who I knew by face, so when she and Sakiko-san came in, I just gave them a questionnaire and said, oh, welcome, and they were both very gracious about the fact of, well, we're not fans. Well, Sakiko-san is, but Mitsuya-san was very gracious about my confusion.
Yeah,
So
she was very, that's a very good word, actually. I would say that was my biggest impression. She was very gracious, very kind, and
extremely.
She seemed to have a lot of fun being able to talk to the people who came up to talk to her. So
really, from start to finish, with the whole interview experience with us and everything, she's been nothing but gracious. And
yes,
yeah.
If you haven't listened to her interview, please do, because she is a very interesting person and she had some great anecdotes and stories. So
yeah, definitely. The other thing that made me so happy about the brunch is I think there was very little middle ground, but there were equal parts people who I know from 10 years ago on LiveJournal and people who became Takarazuka fans like within the past few months. And everybody unloading their stuff onto the excited new fans, just that made me really happy.
Yeah. And like a couple of people that I knew had a lot of stuff that they actually were trying to get rid of. So we had like 4 or 5 boxes of stuff like that we just put out on a table and we're like, go for it, which was cool.
Yeah, everybody was really excited.
Oh, can we talk about the other things that Sakiko brought, or would that be?
I think that's fine.
Okay, so she is a friend of the family of Aizuki Hikaru. And so she's definitely been promoting her among the English-speaking fans. And Aizuki Hikaru, again, let's use that word, graciously, like, gave us a huge stack of signed things for our fan meet, which was awesome. So, thank you, Aizuki-chan, and so good luck as Lukini.
Very much good luck. Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, she's currently Sanbante in Soragumi, and she is playing Lukini in the current run of Elizabeth. So we wish her the best of luck, and we're very, very grateful for her very generous donation to our fan meet.
Like, amazing. Really amazing.
Yeah.
If you're interested in joining her fan club, by the way, contact Sakiko. We'll put the deets in our post, because I know Sakiko is looking to get more fans for her. So
yes. And she will follow through on that.
I was just going to say that I was in New York in about 2012, and by coincidence, I was meeting up with a number of friends who I knew from Takarazuka fandom, and we went to see some Broadway shows. But I remember we were walking around the kind of 42nd Street area, and by the Broadway theater, the Ambassador, I believe, that does productions of Chicago, they had pictures of cast members from around the world, and one of them was WOW. And so there's some picture of me from 4 years ago in front of this poster of WOW, because I was just so excited to find anything Takarazuka in New York. So for me, this idea of being able to get together with all of these other English-speaking Takarazuka fans, to be able to see Mitsuya-san, it was really something else. So it was quite a weekend.
It was like dream come true. It really is a world of dreams, that's for sure.
I don't know if we have time to go into our last talking point, but maybe we can pose it as an open-ended question for people to contribute on the blog as sort of like a fun thing. And we're going to say, what OG would you add to the cast if you could add anybody, and why? So yeah, maybe instead of talking about that now, we'll move the discussion to the blog and see what all of our listeners have to say also.
Yeah, please let us know.
What a dream week.
Yeah, I'm still kind of floating. It's gonna take a while to come down, I think.
Absolutely. But that's good. So, thank you both for podcasting today.
Thank you for letting me join you.
Yeah,
it's been great. We look forward to many more episodes together. And as always, if you have any topics you would like to see us cover, or if you have any questions, please leave a comment on the blog, which is keifion.net/Takarazuka podcast. We definitely read all of the comments, and we will absolutely address them on the podcast.
I promise, even questions from 4 months ago, we still have them. We're going to answer them. I promise.
Yes. We're a little slow, but we will get to them. I think our next episode I'm not going to talk about that because by the time this comes out, it won't be our next episode anymore. So, but anyway, we do listen to the questions. So please leave them. We love it when you leave questions. And thank you so much for listening.
Many thanks to Michael B. and the Arcanum String Quartet for their wonderful arrangement of Sumire no Hana Sakugoro. And thank you, listeners, for enjoying our podcast.